Good evening, everybody. We're going to call the meeting to order of the VSBA December meeting. It's so nice to see everybody. I originally was going to have to step down because we had another meeting for our board, so I had asked Megan to help us lead the meeting. So in case my brain is not working well today after all the prep, she can jump in too. But my meeting was canceled, so I'll be here with you. So I had prepared a little welcome because I thought I was not going to be here to the end. So I'm just going to do it at the welcome because we have a quick interviews right after. So I'm just going to say that as we come to the end of the year, I wanted to do a couple of things before we get involved in the meeting, is just express my heartfelt gratitude to all of you, and to especially because of your unwavering commitment to public education and the work that you do every day. I know that you guys are all involved in budgeting right now, and I feel for you, but your dedication for ensuring that every child has access to high quality education is a great service for our state and for our democracy. And I truly appreciate the time and energy that you put on that. And it's nice to be among a group, like we were saying before the meeting got started, that could all be leading this meeting tonight. So I mostly wanted to take a moment to thank on our behalf our staff who support this work. Their tireless efforts of Sue, Sandra, Debbie, who's not able to join us tonight, and Amy and Mark are the backbone of our organization, and they deal with the day-to-day of our organization. And as we close the year, they play that vital role for us to do what we do and support our school board members on the state. And the webinar on Tuesday was awesome, so just thank them on our behalf. And as we look ahead in the coming year, we know that the legislative session is going to present big challenges, and you guys are all hearing about different things. But we will remain committed to working alongside the legislature, and we're going to continue to stay grounded as a board on our staff, on our mission, and our beliefs, and the great document that we put together at the beginning in November. So again, the new year is gonna undoubtedly test us, and is, at least on my behalf, is testing me already on my own on my own my own board. But I just again want to say how proud I am of this board as we start this meeting today. And now I'll stop talking, and you guys can tell me if you're okay with the agenda as it is, or if you have any revisions on the agenda. Everybody good with the agenda? No revisions? Could I have a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
Clayton.
Thank you, Clayton. Second by Bart.
Second.
Thank you. Bart, unmute it quickly. Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye, or just raise your hand.
School
I see all the ayes have it, and I think Clayton just said aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. So
I can't look at that right now.
the motion has carried, and a couple, I think, is it Barbara? Somebody needs to mute. So, okay. So now we are right on time, 5:05. It's not quite 5:05, 5:03. We are gonna interview for to fill the position that Mark left. We might need two people to fill that position. Not just kidding. For all the work that he was doing. But the position opened up because Mark resigned from the commission, and we hired him, and we're very lucky to have him. So we have two applicants for the position, and they're going to join us, and we're going to interview each of them individually. Both currently serve as alternates on the commission, and in order for us to facilitate efficient process and a fair process, we develop a list of questions. We use some of the questions from the last time we interviewed. We narrow it down to 3 questions, and I'll provide a little time for follow-up questions if necessary. I also want us to be able to compare, apples to apples. And to manage the time, I am going to answer the questions like we did the last time, and we're going to get them one by one in. We sent the questions to both Michael and Akua just this afternoon, so that they had a little sense of what they were going to answer, and sure that they're familiar with them. Any questions from the board in that process? Are you guys okay with that? Okay. So, is Michael in the room or Akua
Michael's in the waiting room. I'll
in
let
the
him in
waiting
right
room?
now. Okay.
Okay. I see him coming through. Oh, where did he go? Hi, Michael.
Howdy.
Welcome. Welcome to our board meeting.
Oh,
You're seeing
yes.
here all your regional representatives. We're not going to go around and introduce ourselves, but they all wave you welcome so that we have more time to hear from you. So thank you. We all really appreciate your time and thank you for being here with us. So I'm gonna jump in right into our first question. And while you answer that first question, go ahead and introduce yourself. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So describe your interest in serving on the commission as the employer commissioner. What skills and experiences will you bring to the commission, especially in regards to negotiations?
Well, my name is Michael Mosier. I live in West Rutland, Vermont. We've lived here since 1985. We're one of the lucky ones. We have a K through 12 school literally just down the street from us. My wife is a floating substitute in Rutland City. She's a non-contract substitute, so she just works by getting a phone call. We have 7 daughters, and 4 of them are teachers in various parts of the country. And I have 3 daughter-in-laws who are also teachers. So the last thing that if somebody had said 10 or 15 years ago that I'd be sitting here in this position, or even as a school board member, I would have said, nah, I think you're a little nuts. But I guess it's rubbed off a little bit. My interest is to I was in sales for almost 40 years. And a good portion of that was in the financial services area, and saw the struggles that people had with health insurance, especially. Um, I think the state has made it difficult for people as far as insurance goes. So when a position came up to be an alternate on the board, I applied and was accepted. I've enjoyed the time that we've had. A little disappointed that we seem to show up the ball game with our equipment ready to go, and the other team doesn't seem to want to take the field. So I'm not exactly sure how we're gonna approach this, but I've been in numerous negotiations as a school board member over the last 20 plus years. We just got done with our negotiation here a couple of days ago, which we were waiting for ratification from the union and from the other school boards. So really an interest is as a citizen first, a taxpayer, and having had some experience in the industry, thinking that maybe my abilities and skills might be able to lend themselves to the board to accomplish the goal, which the goal would be to help the teachers find a way to provide insurance without the struggles that come along to the taxpayer. So that's really my interest as far as that goes.
Thank you, Michael. The second question is, what do you think are the what do you think are the most pressing issues for the Commission on Public School Employee Health Benefits right now?
Well, obviously the cost drivers for health insurance for the teachers. We've got to find a way for them to understand that. My understanding is also that they have the best plan in the country, and that's significant. I'm not sure that they appreciate the value of that. It tends to be, in my view, they look at it as a territory that they're going to guard with everything that they have. So we have a bit of a challenge in front of us. Eventually, we're going to see that the cost is just going to be exorbitant. And how do we find a way for them to provide for their families as far as the insurance goes, but also help them to understand that who is actually paying for this, and that is the taxpayer in general. We need to look at maybe other options for them, and that's where sales comes back into it. If they're not willing to listen, we've got a big challenge on our hands. But I think if we put our heads together, we might find ways to be able to, if you will, soften their hearts a little bit, because eventually it could be put them in a position where they might not have it at all. So that's unlikely, but it could happen. There's other options that might be available to them that we need to look at. So I think the pressing issue right now is the cost of health insurance for them.
Thank you, Michael. And the last question is, serving on the commission requires, as you know, you have been an alternate already, requires significant preparation and time. How will you manage this commitment?
Well, I'm retired, so that makes it life a lot easier for myself as far as being able to manage my time. I'm not in the industry anymore and I'm not licensed anymore, so I don't have any ties that way. So I feel like a little bit more independent as far as that goes. But time is having run a business, you manage your time pretty well because you have responsibilities and places to be and people to see and products and presentations to make. And you're using their time, so you have to make your time effective in their presence, and you have to be prepared ahead of time.
Great, thank you. I think you covered everything. Any follow-up from our board members? Okay. Thank you, Michael. You were very
Okay.
thorough, and thank you for taking the time to interview with us. And we'll let you know, Sue will let you know as soon as we're done. Okay?
Very good. Everybody be safe.
you.
Good evening. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Akua is in the waiting room now.
Okay, let's let her in.
Okay.
Here she comes, maybe. I don't know. It's Barbara that just came live.
Hello.
Oh, there you are, Akua.
Oh.
Sorry, I couldn't see you. I was waiting for your camera to show up. I'm like,
Yes, I'm turning it on. I'm just trying to find the button.
okay, welcome. Sorry. Yeah, I was just waiting I didn't realize you were with us. Thank you for joining us tonight, Akua. It's really nice to see you. We are not going to go around and introduce ourselves, but it will take a lot of precious time. But in behalf of the board, I welcome you. We're so excited to have you with us, and thank you for the work you have already been doing. We're going to jump right into the questions. And on the first question, you can go ahead and introduce yourselves. Most of the board met you the first time you interviewed with us to be an alternate. And now Sue shared the questions with you this afternoon. So we're going to jump in that first question, which is describe your interest in serving on the commission as an employer commissioner, and what skills and experiences will you bring to the commission, especially with regards to negotiations?
Okay, perfect. Hello, good to see everyone. My name, of course, is Akua Smith. And as Flora mentioned, I am currently an alternate employer commissioner, as well as on the Franklin Northeast Supervisory Union and the Edithsburg Richford Board. In addition to that, in terms of my background and experience, first of all, as a strategic benefits consultant for Acrisure, as well as many years in nonprofit leadership internationally as the executive director of a nonprofit organization, as well as working for Cigna Healthcare for 14 years. So just that little snapshot, you can probably see that I have a pretty diverse experience when it comes to healthcare specifically and leadership. And that has been working with diverse clients and organizations. And I truly understand the complexities of managing healthcare costs and benefits, because that's a big part of what I do in my day-to-day job. And so it's really important to me that as we look at the healthcare system in the United States generally, that there are a lot of issues. And, there's a huge onus and requirement specifically on both employers and employees to take a seat at the table in the transformation that needs to happen. Employers, first of all, as the second largest payer in the nation, there's a really big opportunity when we look at the healthcare system and say that it has problems to educate and engage employers and understanding that they really play a big role in shifting what we currently have access to, and then as well educating the folks that are the end user, the employees.
Thank you, Akua. We're going to move into the second question. What do you think are the most pressing issues for the Commission on Public School Employee Health Benefits now? And you spoke a little bit about that, but can you go more in depth?
Absolutely. Probably number one, just managing the rising healthcare costs, right? So nationally, but specifically in Vermont, Vermont has a lot of challenges in terms of, just the hospital payer system, our aging population, and several other components. So really just managing that, as well as addressing the disparities that exist in care, and ensuring that high quality benefits, are available, right, for the utilizers, and in this case, the public school employees, so that we are not losing out on quality to get savings and costs, but that we're looking at both components and working together as we look at both of those components to see the shift. So, I think that it's important that innovative solutions be prioritized, as well as data. Data is a key component, right? Are we looking at the data, and are we using data to make decisions, as well as just fostering that collaboration that needs to take place with the stakeholders to drive those meaningful outcomes.
Thank you. And question number 3. Serving on the commission requires significant preparation and time. How will you manage this commitment with other commitments?
That's a big one, because as everybody on this call, right, we are all busy with our career. I'm a busy professional. As you heard me say, I'm a board member, both at the school board level and the commission and other boards that I serve at. And I'm a mom, which is a huge priority for me. But with those things, I already prioritize time management and organization in order to be as successful as I am in all the things that I do. So, my nature is to stay focused and to set clear goals for myself, and then to delegate things when possible to others. I do also have a very strong support system that's aware of all my commitments, and, have done a pretty good job throughout my life balancing my responsibilities while I do what I love and am passionate about, which is making meaningful contributions. So both year and through the employee commission.
Apologies for that, Akua. I just had to tell the report that meeting was canceled. So thank you. Any follow-up questions from board members? I see Jim.
Yeah, Akua, with your experience in this field now, just curious, do you feel there are win-win solutions out there to control costs and provide our teachers with the quality healthcare we want to provide them with? Do you see routes that could achieve both goals?
Absolutely, 100%. One of the things that I specialize in for my larger clients are custom tailored benefit solutions. Now, they exist. However, it does mean that people have to change their mindsets about what they currently have access to, right? If you are looking at the healthcare system and saying, well, we only have 4 or 5 choices, right? In Vermont, even less. But, when I say 4 or 5 choices, a lot of employers come into the market thinking we only have Blue Cross, Cigna, United Healthcare, Aetna, etc. And that's not the case. And so when you ask, are there other solutions? There are. They sometimes can be different solutions, and folks need to be educated on what that shift is going to mean. But the shift, if groups are willing to take it, are beneficial, both from a cost perspective, as well as, you know, we're still getting quality of care for the members. So yes, they do exist. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was very helpful. Any other follow-up questions? I don't see any hands up, so thank you, Akua, for joining us tonight. Sue will get back to you as soon as the meeting is over. Thank you for taking the time to join us tonight, and we'll let you know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys.
Okay.
And you guys be safe out there tonight. My goodness. Drive
I
safely
know.
as you're getting home.
Yeah, it's a little, yeah.
Yes, little
Drive
hairy.
safe.
Have a
Yeah.
good evening. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. All of, I don't know, does somebody want to put a motion up and then we can,
I would like to move to nominate Akua. I don't remember her last name to the
Smith.
Akua Smith.
Yeah.
I would like to move to nominate Akua Smith.
Okay. Moved by Megan. Can I have a second?
Here, Clayton.
I'll second.
A second by Emily. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Or raising your hand.
Aye.
Okay, let's see. Okay. Any oppose? I don't. So I guess it's unanimous then, everybody. So Sue, you would let her know after the meeting?
Yes, I will let both of them know.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we need to check for abstentions? I don't know if Suzanne was able to vote. And I bring that up because I saw a lot of abstentions from Suzanne last meeting. And then,
I
just
thought
wanna
I
make sure.
saw her. I thought I saw her, but maybe I missed her, Mel. So it's a good point. Any abstentions? I know her internet was a little funky, but yeah. So I'm just gonna assume that was anonymous. Unanimous. Sorry, I can't speak today. Okay, let's move into our next item in your agenda, and we're right on time. I love this. It's 5:30, and that's exactly what we were hoping for. So the next item in our agenda is the Legislative Committee report. The Legislative Committee met to review and discuss the report of the redistricting task force, as you all know. And we used that 12 criteria that we had all unanimously approved at our November meeting. In using that structure, Sandra and Sue developed a form, and not everybody was able to fill it, but then we used those questions to go over that criteria. We used the questions with the criteria to go over the task districting report. And then after that, I talked we did all the listening, and then we talked with the Legislative Committee and said, is this what we're hearing? They gave us the authorization to go talk to Chris Horan, who's helping us, and as our communications, I want to magic person almost, because he's amazing. And so Chris, Sandra, and Sue and myself worked on the statement, and Sue sent the statement to all of you before it went to all of our membership. And as you guys know, the statement affirms the urgency to addressing the task cost drivers, that there's no evidence that a large-scale mandate district merger reduces costs to improve outcomes. And while we support and the task force recommendation to consider strategic and voluntary mergers plus feasibility studies to ease the fiscal stress, we also stress in that third paragraph, I think it was, the commitment to working closely with the General Assembly, and also stress the responsibility to ensure that the state also takes responsibility on their part. And we will continue to advocate with them. And I don't know, Legislative Committee, if I missed something, you guys all got to see the statement. Any questions on that process or in the Legislative Committee statement? It was a collaborative process, and it seemed like the Legislative Committee was pretty happy with the way we approached it. So any questions? Okay. Wow, very quiet. Okay. So now we're going to move into the legislative platform. Sue, that's for you.
Okay, I'll just set a little context here. For the past 2 legislative sessions, VSBA has put together a legislative platform which helps guide our work in the State House. And the first page introduces the legislators to the VSBA, and it also informs them about what school boards do generally, in case they're not really aware of the role of school boards. And then the second page is really the page that covers the actual legislative direction that VSBA is advocating for. So that's how we've had it set up in the past 2 years. And we expect this year to get off to a roaring start and be focused on redistricting again. I'm sure you've been seeing that in the media. So we have kept several of the points from last year in the legislative platform. We've also added to them based on the resolutions that passed. And we also included the 12 criteria that this board developed at your last meeting that Floor just spoke about that we used to evaluate the redistricting task force report. Those criteria are really appropriate to use to evaluate other proposals as well. So we would like to have our Downs, Racklin, and Martin lobbyist who we're working with provide us some guidance on the legislative platform, as well as the communications consultant that we've been working with. So we're not asking you tonight to vote to approve the document, but we would really like to hear any feedback that you have on it. The piece that is in your packet is only what would go on the second page. I know it's more than one page. It would need to be, we would need to condense a few things, and it's very spread out in what I sent to you. But anyway, we would also be working on graphics to make it look nice. But right now, really what we're looking for from you is any feedback that you have on the content that's in your packet for the legislative platform.
Go ahead, Gaston.
Yeah, the only question I had too, I like the way it's all laid out, quite frankly, but was under education cost drivers priorities under facilities and existing legislation where we talk about making sure there's appropriate funding. One thing that's missing from here, and I don't know if it's assumed that it's a part of this, but it's this whole PCB mitigation thing. And I know that I'm talking very specifically about Region North, but I think that there are other schools in the state who are also battling this. We are somewhere around $8.5 million into PCB remediation. And, the latest thing is that we're now going to have to, or they're proposing to put a plastic mat all around the 3 buildings so that we can keep the PCB fumes, if you will, into the ground and below this mat so it doesn't get picked up by, the intake, the air conditioning and the air vents and all of that. I mean, this is just crazy. And at some point, this is going to come to a head where we may need a new building. And this is not something that we started. And, again, we're into 8.5 million at this point, I believe Elaine had said. And so I'm just concerned that the way this is written, it's school construction and capital expenses, where they still haven't finished this whole thing with the PCBs yet. And that needs to come to a point, if you will. Over. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point, Gaston. We can certainly add a statement here about the PCBs, and I do know that that there is a bill in the works to hold districts harmless on the costs, and VSA worked on that bill quite a bit, and I know that it's, as I said, in the works, and I think it's something that we're going to be able to support. So we could certainly add something in here that addresses PCBs.
Thank you, Gaston. Good point. Michael.
Yeah, also on facilities. And this is really just more of a subtle issue, but it's one that I feel strongly about, which is it mentions school construction and then just sort of capital expenses. I'd almost like to have us say something explicitly about major maintenance projects that extend the life of the building. A lot of times when the school construction aid comes through, it's really only for new construction, and in many cases it'd be much cheaper to rehabilitate the existing facilities. Not always, but I'd like to see it called out explicitly rather than just generic capital expenses.
Thanks, Michael. I took down that note.
Okay. Jim?
Yeah, looking at the education funding priorities, there are, 6 bullet points. Looking at it, the third one down, ensure private schools and pre-K programs comply with, all requirements, quality, equity, efficiency, and transparency. Then 2 down, it says strengthen accountability for the use of public dollars, which I tend to think that that's usually a statement that means, what independent schools need to do, which just kind of the question is 5 a repeat, sort of a repeat of 3?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jim. I think that it's a more general statement that includes 3. So it's possible that we could just have one bullet.
Just it seemed like
Yeah.
my read was it was duplicative. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Mark? Mark, go ahead.
Hi. Under education fund, clarify the use and purpose of the education fund. I think I know what you're getting at, but that's not very specific. And I'm wondering what that's trying to get to. I was part of this, but I just don't remember. And that kind of strikes me as ambiguous as to what that could be.
Yeah, so that it refers to the legislature, uses the education fund for things that are not directly supporting school district budgets through education spending, but it's utilized for pensions, it's utilized for the universal meals program. There's I think when we had our presentation, the webinar the other day, I think Jake Feldman from the tax department said there's like 10 different things that are that the education fund is used for that's not support of school budgets. So I don't think that statement is saying it shouldn't be used, but I think it's saying that we are asking the legislature to really clarify what is the purpose of the education fund and what should it be used for, so that they don't feel like they can just dip into it for these various things without any sort of like criteria like all of you are used to developing.
That was a good explanation. It makes a lot of sense. I'm just wondering if you don't drill down a little bit more on this. Maybe your DRM rep can help you, just so it can state something closer to what you said.
Yeah. Yep. I'll make a note of that.
And it would help us if we're talking to legislators to remember it and remind ourselves. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else?
Oh, sorry, Flor, can I just
Go ahead, Neil.
can I ask a quick, did you all talk about the practice of the legislature, I guess with the governor's agreement to use one-time funds to buy down the tax rate?
When do you mean when you say did
I
you
guess
all,
what
what do you mean?
I don't know if it was part of like a legislative committee discussion or feeding into some of the priorities around the funding piece for this session, as to whether or not there was a conversation around that practice and whether folks generally thought it was a good idea, bad idea, or indifferent, and whether or not that would influence any work that we might, pursue in the next session.
I don't think that was discussed specifically. I do know that in the past, whenever VSBA has testified on that particular issue, we've had a position that was against buying down the tax rate because of the impact on the next fiscal year, which you're all seeing right now. But certainly, if you all want to have a conversation about that, to either recommit to that idea or decide that you are headed in a different direction, you can certainly do that.
Thank you, Neil. We have Emily.
Thank you. I really appreciate the core priorities. That's a really clear place that we can talk about our values. I wonder if there's a way to expand. I'm not sure what the language would be really, but we're working for equal education opportunities for students to improve student outcomes. I wonder if that's something the committee has discussed.
I'm just making a note about that, Emily. I don't know that that was specifically discussed, but it's in our it's in several resolutions. So, and go ahead, Flor.
Yeah, I feel like we did talk about it because we even included in the facilities, like everything impacts student outcomes and equal education opportunities. So it's more like something that is layered on top of everything that we do, because otherwise we would have to put it in each individual one. It's sort of how we were that is a core value of and belief that we have. So, but it's a good point, Emily. Jim?
I kind of wanted to second Neil's point. I think with the situation we're in this year, putting on our legislative priority list, noting the fact that we don't think it's a good practice to put us in the hole we're in this year. I think I would second including that as a bullet point. It doesn't have to be real detailed, but I think we should make it clear, because when the December 1 letter came out and it just said 12%, and it didn't even mention the fact that half of the increase is because of last year's extra funding. Really, I mean, I would support putting that in as a bullet point.
Thank you, Jim. Anything else? Okay. Hearing none, is that enough, Sue? I think
that's very helpful. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody. So the next item is also planning our legislative breakfast, which we all had agreed on a date. So I'm gonna let Sue talk about it. We're super excited about this. Go ahead, Sue.
Yes, we're very, very excited about this. Last year we held our first legislative breakfast. It was at the Capitol Plaza, and we had less than half of the board there. So we're really excited about this year, because one of the things that we learned from last year is we think it's best or better to have the legislative breakfast at the State House. So we do have the cafeteria reserved for January 23rd from 8 to 9:30 a.m. And as you all know, the purpose of the event is to strengthen the working relationship that VSBA has with legislators and share VSBA statewide policy priorities, explain how proposed legislation would affect school boards' ability to govern effectively, and also listen to any questions from the legislators. So we definitely want to emphasize a tone of partnership and respect that's grounded in VSBA's mission. And we are working on a format for the breakfast, which is probably, it's in this different setting of the State House cafeteria. So in that setting, legislators are coming and going frequently. So the setting lends itself better, we think, to individual and small group discussions rather than a full group presentation. But we are thinking about preparing some materials, of course, that would be large presentation type materials that would have data on them that would be very easy to understand, and also maybe some handouts. And what we're going to do is work with our lobbyist and our communications consultant on this event to make sure that it's a successful event. So we're going to hold a preparation session for the VSBA board members on Zoom on January 14th at from 5 to 6 p.m. And that's your usual board meeting night, but you don't usually meet in January. So this wouldn't be a board meeting. It would really just be a prep session for you for the legislative breakfast. And we are hoping that we can get a preliminary count tonight of who thinks they can attend. This is just, it's very preliminary. So if you say you can come and then you end up not being able to, or if you say you can't and then you end up being able to come, that is not a big deal. But we're really putting a lot of time and effort into the breakfast. So it would be really helpful for us to know how many of you are going to be able to attend. So I don't know what would be the best way to ask about
yeah,
that.
I was thinking that we would just go like literally roll call quickly and say, and if you don't know if you can attend in January, like Sue said, that's okay, and you can still come to the prep session, the Zoom prep session, even if you're not going to go to the January. But ideally, we would get. Or even we don't need to do roll call. Like, let's raise your hand if you can attend the breakfast on January 23rd and are committed to making it possible and your work would allow it. Jim, yes. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And I always forget that Zoom also counts for me now. Yeah. So I think we had 17, Sue. Did I get that right?
That's very exciting. Thank you.
So that's exciting. Okay. Any questions for Sue or for any of us on the breakfast? Barbara?
Yes, I just wanted to say that I think the preparation to me would be very important. I mean, I've been at the State House many times, and it's I really want to be sure what I'm doing there and what my goal would be. And do I speak to my local legislators? Do I make sure I get introduced to somebody? That kind of thing. I would like a sort of a playbook that I could follow, because my biggest hesitation about going is that I'm just going to be like a deer in the headlights trying to figure out what I should do next.
Yeah. And that's the idea of the Zoom, to do a prep session so that and we can divide and conquer between all of us. If we know who's coming, then we can plan accordingly, and also to get everybody comfortable with being at the State House and getting to know. It doesn't necessarily have to be your own representative, but having it's good sometimes for them to hear the perspectives of other parts of the state too. But so yeah, you will have some good. We will probably give you some homework before that meeting, that Zoom meeting, too, so that you have some data of your own district too. Okay.
Yeah, and maybe I'll ask Patty Comline to come.
That's true.
Good.
Yeah.
And what time was it for prep?
5 to 6 p.m. on January 14th.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll say Amy is very good about sending calendar invites to everybody. So just respond to that calendar invite to that is really helpful. Anything else that would be helpful to know, Sue, for members?
I don't think so, not right now, but we'll definitely keep you updated.
Okay. So moving right along, we're a little ahead of time. We have the VSBA Employee Handbook. We want to review some updates with you, and I'm going to give it again back to Sue.
Okay.
You want to share your screen or just talk about it, Sue?
I think I'll just talk about it.
Okay. You have it in your packet.
Yes. So the VSBA Employee Handbook is in need of updating, mainly due to changes in various laws. The last time it was updated was in 2022, and there are also some proposed changes in the sections covering employee leave, benefits, and technology that aren't due to changes in law, but are just suggestions. So the handbook begins on page 9 of your meeting packet. I'm going to summarize the changes rather than go through each individual word. I think that would probably take a long time. But if you have specific questions after I'm done with the summary, we can go back and talk about them. So pages 9 through 17 of your packet are the handbook pages that cover non-discrimination and anti-harassment. The changes on these pages are required due to additions to the protected characteristics and changes to the definition of harassment under Vermont's Fair Employment Practices Act. So that covers the changes on pages 9 through 17. Page 18 of your packet covers work schedule. The Federal Fair Labor Standards Act required a change to our flex time policy. That policy allowed employees to accrue flex time and apply those hours at a later date within the same fiscal year. That isn't allowed under the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act, so employees will still have flexibility in their schedules, which is really needed due to the number of night and weekend meetings that the staff attends while working with school boards. But they're going to need to make adjustments in their schedules in the same week or pay period type of time frame rather than within the same fiscal year. Pages 19 through 20, we added language under performance management and compensation, which comes directly from our work earlier this year with a human resources consultant on a compensation matrix and practices. So that is word for word from the compensation practices. On page 21, under employee benefits, we're proposing revising the amount of cash in lieu of health insurance from $3,500 to $4,500. The amount of $3,500 has been in place since before 2018. And with the rapidly rising cost of health insurance, we think it's advisable to consider increasing the amount of cash in lieu by $1,000 to $4,500. Also on page 21, we removed language limiting the number of sick days employees can accrue based on advice from the employment attorney that reviewed all of this, that a limitation on sick day accrual is not allowed under Vermont law. You can limit the number of how many sick days can be used each year, but you cannot limit the number that can be accrued. On page 22, we added a provision limiting the number of vacation days a new employee may use in the first 6 months of employment to 5 days. On pages 22 to 23, we also added a provision providing employees with 2 volunteer days per year and set the guardrails for that benefit. And we had talked with the board, I think it was maybe about a year ago, about the possibility of adding that in. On pages 24 through 25, we clarified the travel reimbursement policy. It just aligns with current practices. And on page 25, we added a section on responsible use of artificial intelligence and a section notifying employees where the mandatory employment law notices are posted. I want to reiterate that this has all been reviewed by an employment attorney, and many of the changes came directly from her. They were recommended by her. And when these changes are approved, employees will be asked to review the updated handbook and sign the last page. We really began, to take a step back, we began the proposed changes by working collaboratively with the staff. And then the employment law attorney reviewed the document, and her advised changes based on changes to Vermont and federal law were added to the document. So that concludes my summary, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for members?
I have none. Sue didn't just answer. I had 3 or 4, but she answered them all.
Do you want a motion to approve this from the board, or you just?
Yeah, we need a motion. Neil
I'd make
had
that
his
Mark
hand up.
Clough.
Good. Okay. A second,
Clayton.
Clayton. So Mark and Clayton, any discussion, Neil?
Actually, the part, Sue, can you clarify the sick day accumulation piece again? We're not, in Vermont, we're not allowed to limit accumulation of sick days?
Right. Yes, our previous language in the handbook said that only up to 60 days could be accrued, And the employment law attorney advised us that we could not have that in the handbook.
That's
This
different
has
than schools.
this has nothing to do with VSBA, but how does this apply to schools as well in collective bargaining agreements or no?
I don't know. I don't know whether it applies to collective bargaining agreements.
Oh,
She referenced the Vermont Fair Employment Practices Act.
oh,
I was kind of curious
interesting.
at that point as well, and I think that there are two different things. There's one accumulation of sick days that can be used, and then there's to the extent sick days get paid out upon ceasing to be employed. Those are there's
We don't,
usually a limit there too, but
yeah, we don't pay out any sick days when someone separates
I
employment.
know I noticed that I had the same concerns as Neil because I'm thinking of other contracts where we do limit the number of sick days, and sometimes it's just limiting how much you'll pay out in case of ceasing to be employed. But which I understand that is typical that teachers
Yeah, we set a straight cutoff.
usually have a limit.
We have a limit, an absolute limit in the contract locally for teachers, but not for, I mean, it's not germane to this exactly. And then that may have something to do with union agreements as opposed to this agreement, statewide non-union agreements. That may be the change, but I don't know. So I think we probably all need to talk to lawyers again.
Okay, so you want to make a change? Is that what I'm hearing?
No.
No.
Okay, okay. All right. Any other discussion? Otherwise, we'll call for the vote. Mark, you have another question?
He's voting.
Oh, you're voting. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? See any abstentions? Okay, seeing none, and I actually don't even see Suzanne anymore, so she must have dropped. Okay, so the motion carries. We're gonna move into we're really moving through this quickly. So the next part is gonna give it to Jim, our treasurer report. I'm giving it to you at 6 p.m., Jim, and we're supposed to be at 6:35, so keep us
All right. At the last
early.
meeting, we pulled this off of the agenda, and so putting it forward now. This is the first quarter ended September 30th, 2025. Overall, VSBA's you have in your package you have a balance sheet and income statement and a little bit of additional info. Overall, VSBA's financial position remains in very good shape. We're tracking a bit under budget in the first quarter, but it's still early in the year, and we don't really, we still think that the budget is probably a pretty good approximation of where we expect to come out across the full year. But we're coming out ahead right now. Board development is a little busier, so actually producing on a net basis about an extra $6,000 of net income. The SBA searches are right at budget. The most significant number is compensation expenses running below budget by about 35,000, but that really reflects the fact that our employment changes as we had people leaving and coming on board. We expect that to kind of work out over the course of the year to probably not lock in that ahead of budget, but probably be close to budget by the end of the year. Minor item, our audit also came in a bit over budget at a big $8,100 versus $7,000, which was not really, frankly, very surprising. Look at our balance sheet as well. We're in very solid shape. The Finance Committee recently had a meeting to review the first quarter financials as well as our investments, and the draft minutes on that meeting are in your package. The Finance Committee is comfortable with where we are with both the financials and the investment of our restricted reserve funds. The Finance Committee, the investments, that's a new item since we started the new investment program in the beginning of 2024. So probably making sure that the full board is aware where we stand with that, because it was a significant change to the way we had done things for a number of years. To date, it's worked out very well for us. We've had the benefit of good investment market conditions. Just to kind of let you know the way the investments work, we only recognize as current income on our income statement dividends or capital gains that are actually received on our mutual fund and ETF holdings. And basically our whole investment portfolio is just mutual funds and one ETF, exchange traded fund, so equivalent of a mutual fund. The only change we've made in our investment since starting this back in early 2024 is last year we with the board's approval and vote, we shifted from an S&P 500 mutual fund into an ESG oriented ETF. Call out to Gaston on that, as who's pushing for that one. That did lead to a recognition of some extra capital gains last year. Typically, we expect about from our investments somewhere in the territory of about 19,000 in dividends. Last year, with the sale of the S&P 500 moving into the ETF, that bumped our last year's in up to about 41,000. To date, where we are, we built up a nice cushion of unrealized gains. You'll see if you look at our balance sheet, they show up in the, thanks to Bart on this and helping us with the accounting. The unrealized gains show up in our balance sheet as unrealized gains and losses dash AOCI, which is accumulated other comprehensive income. And that balance at September 30th is about 75,000. So that's what we have as a cushion against, markets turning against us. So basically, we're in a pretty good place. Just wanted to give you the quarterly update on the investments as well, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jim. Could we have a motion and then we'll do some discussion to accept the treasurer's first
A
quarter
motion
report?
to accept by Mark Clough.
Thank you,
Seconded by
Mark.
Megan.
Moved by Mark, second by Megan. Discussion. Mark, you have your hand up or just
Yeah,
for
I
the
don't
motion?
want Jim to get a free ride here.
Okay.
The accounts receivable is up. We don't get an aging schedule. What makes up the accounts receivable? And are they all collectible? Do we always collect our receivables?
That I'm going to actually have to ask for an assistant. On our receivables, we don't have much in the way of charge-offs at all. I know that, but Amy, do you have a?
I would say that we, for the most part, receive a payment. I would think the only thing since I've been here that I've had to enter as a bad debt have been a few student law book purchases. Like the law school student has purchased the book and not paid for it, and we'll follow up on it for a year and not get paid. I think there's been 2 or 3 of those. Other than that, I've not seen anything not be paid.
Thank you, Amy. And my comment, Jim, is, and you've heard this before, I wish we were using a Vermont bank and I wish we were using a Vermont investment company, just because we're a Vermont organization. You heard it before.
Yeah, and we, honestly, when we went into the investment, we're doing it through Vanguard, right? When we went into it, we looked at, we priced out using an office, of a Vermont investment company, and the cost differential was dramatic. I mean, these are, key thing to note is, using a Vanguard or a Fidelity, overall our cost, in fees for these investments, we're talking about, small basis points, the fees for these funds run anywhere from about, 4 to 12 basis points. And typically, so that's, 0.04%. And the typical cost when we costed it out for using a Vermont organization was more like 100 basis points.
So, Jim, in 7th grade language, 400 basis.
Sorry, yeah. So the cost for, if we went to, some of the brokerage firms, Vermont offices, the cost would be about 1% per year, the fee so if we, if our restricted reserve fund was 425,000, our cost would be 1% of that per year. And our actual cost is a tenth of that with using the Vanguard or Fidelity.
Thank you. That's wait, I can understand
Yep.
that way better. Sorry. Michael.
Yeah, is the receivables primarily dues that we're just waiting to get processed through from SUs? Or is there any other really large chunk of that? Is it something else?
We've had all of our dues paid.
You've had all your dues paid.
Yes.
Yeah, so the receivables are probably, when we do, I'm just guessing that, we have some things like when we do board development, when we do searches, stuff like that, we bill people out and, we takes a little while to collect it. 62,000, that's a higher number than that. I'm not sure what it's all made up of. But we can look into that and give a report next time.
Yep.
Okay. So I don't see any other hands up, so I'm assuming there's no more questions. Just immense thanks to the entire Finance Committee for all their work and their expertise. And thanks for the presentation, Jim, too, and for the explanations online, Bart. So all those in favor of the report, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Okay. I see all hands up. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the report is approved by all. Okay. Now we're going to move into our communications with regions. So I don't know, Amy, are you going to take this one or?
I can take it.
Or Sue? Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, and I wanted to follow up on one other thought on the previous question, which this is the report. The report Jim just gave was for the first quarter, which ends at the end of September. And we did get all the dues have been paid now, but we did have, I want to say like 3 or 4 that were paid in October. So I'm thinking that a big chunk of that would be what that 62,000 is. For communication with regions, the December communication is going to focus on inviting state representatives to local school board meetings, like talking to our members about doing that, which will allow an opportunity for boards to learn about what's happening in Montpelier, what representatives are doing on behalf of a district, and allow boards to voice concerns and hopes regarding proposed laws and regulations. And then the email is also going to include reminders for the Get On Board webinar, which is next week. The VSBA member survey, which is open right now. And there'll be a link to the December 1 letter webinar, which we just held on yesterday. So that's all going to be in the form that you get from Amy, and we will be getting that out to you, I think, either tomorrow or Friday. So we're hoping you can get it out to your regions pretty promptly so that they get that reminder about the Get On Board webinar. Not that current school board members are necessarily going to want to attend that webinar, but if they know someone who's interested in running, we want to make sure that they get that information to them. I also wanted to let you know, related to the Get On Board webinar, that Sandra did some really great work in contacting Front Porch Forum, and they agreed at no charge to put out an announcement about that webinar statewide on Front Porch Forum. So we're hoping that is going to get more attendees to that webinar.
Thank you. So any questions? That is really great news. Tara.
My board just met with our local legislators on Monday night, When you send that communication out, is it okay if I remove that paragraph for the folks that are at MMU and kind of send two
Oh, sure.
emails? Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and you can customize it however you want. You don't have to stick to our what we put in there. It's just a tool to help you save time. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm saying this out loud because Megan, I'll take this one on because my board already met with the legislators.
Does that include your senators?
Yeah, we included everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions for Sue? Seeing no hands up, we're gonna move into monitoring our strategic plan. And again, we're focusing on the advocacy for public education. And again, I'm gonna give it to Sue and to Mark to take this on.
Okay. I can basically cover this and Mark jump in if you need to. So this evening we're focusing on the third goal of the strategic plan, and it starts on page 31 of your board packet, I believe, which is advocacy for public education. As always, as we report on this section of the monitoring report, please keep in mind these questions. Are there topics you think belong in the key results that staff should consider? In other words, is there a different key result we should have, or should we rephrase it? Is there any other information you would like to see reported? So you'll see that there are 3 objectives under this goal area. The first objective is keep school board members informed of legislative activity. That's an important one. This objective has one key result. It's KR 3.1.1, which is to provide timely and relevant information through multiple communication channels, which may include legislative reports and alerts and advocacy chats. So under this key result, we wanted to let you know we're gearing up for the legislative session by finalizing the legislative platform. Yesterday, we hosted a webinar for members on understanding the December 1 tax letter. I hope you were able to attend, but if you weren't, the recording will be posted in our webinar archive, and I highly recommend watching that webinar. Additionally, we are working with communications consultant Chris Horan, and he helped us develop the position paper, Responsible Implementation of Act 73, which used your 12 criteria that you developed at your last board meeting. He's also helped us develop a statement on the redistricting task force report and social media posts highlighting those documents. VSBA is going to continue working with Chris Horan during the legislative session to ensure clear and consistent communication with our members, legislators, and the public. And it's been really invaluable to have him as a resource. Any questions on that key result before I move on to the next objective? Gaston.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Sue. So the only question I have is I recall a conversation we've had in the past where you all were talking about the open rate. You know how the VSBA updates and how you can track how people open it or don't,
Yeah.
so kind of give you an indication. When you look at these multiple channels of communicating, what's going on in the legislature, are you going to track the open rate for those different communication channels? And again, I'm not really sure what you're referring to, but if there's like a legislative update that is sent out, do you also track how often our membership opens that document and compare that with, how frequently they open the VSBA, weekly updates? Does that make sense? What I'm asking?
Yes, yes. We have tracked that type of information in the past and compared it to the same month in the previous year. I will ask Amy if she has any information, additional information about what we can track as far as open rates. Do you know, Amy?
as far as the open, I mean, we have open rates and click rates. That's pretty much what we can track as far within MailChimp.
I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is that if our membership open rates or click rates are steadily going up, then that's an indication that they're really engaged with Act 73 and the legislative process, at least, going forward in 2026. I just think that, to me, that's kind of interesting, but, maybe not for others. That's the only reason why I ask.
We can certainly keep tracking that information, and I think usually what we compare it to is we can compare it to the previous month, but we can also compare it to the same month the previous year, because we do kind of see some trends where boards are more engaged during certain months. So it is interesting data.
Thanks, Sue.
You're welcome. The second strategic plan objective under advocacy for public education is effectively represent VSBA's positions and resolutions in state policy decisions. And you have two key results under this objective. Those are KR 3.2.1 and KR 3.2.2. The first KR, is that the VSBA positions influence legislation and policy. And we are conducting pre-session meetings with legislators. We're working on bill language and securing sponsors for proposed bills, particularly related to addressing school employees' health benefits as a cost driver. KR 3.2.2 is the second one, and that is that the VSBA consistently calls upon the legislature, is called upon by the legislature, to testify on matters impacting public education. And we ensure VSBA's voice remains relevant and valued by legislators by communicating with them prior to the session. They've received the position paper, Responsible Implementation of Act 73. We've had some meetings with legislators before the session, and we have some more that are scheduled. We've got one scheduled for Friday morning, Mark and I. And we've continued to participate in monthly meetings that are hosted by the Speaker of the House. We anticipate that we're going to have a lot of requests for testimony throughout the session, just like we did last year. And that is really given the fact that the governor and the General Assembly have stated their intention to address education funding and possibly redistricting. So I think it's going to be another very busy legislative session. Are there any questions on that second strategic plan objective before I move on to the third one? Not seeing any. Okay, I'll go on to number 3. The third strategic plan objective under advocacy for public education is support local school boards' ability to attain proficiency in the governance standards. And there are 3 key results under this objective. The first one requires VSBA staff to increase staff capacity to support improved educational equity across all areas of work. And working to advance educational equity through school board governance continues to be a priority for us. Floor and Megan and I are going to be attending the NSBA 2026 Advocacy and Equity Symposium, and we're going to be bringing learning and ideas from this national convening back to the association. The next key result under this objective is about advocating for educational equity through necessary resources and services to local districts from state leaders such as the AOE, the General Assembly, and the State Board. And this work is really ongoing, and it includes the points made in the position paper, the responsible implementation of Act 73, and the statement that was issued last week in response to the redistricting task force report. And then we've got a new key result under this third objective, which is support school boards by providing resources and tools for school board members to engage and communicate with their locally elected officials. So we really want to be able to provide our members with some tools that make it that give them some like a framework and a pathway for communicating and engaging with their locally elected officials. Some of our school boards are really good at this already, and some of them really don't know how to go about doing it. So we're beginning to work on this new key result, which we really just put in here recently because we thought it was important to do. So that is the strategic plan monitoring report. And I wondered, Floor, if since the meeting is running early, this is totally up to you as the chair, but we're wondering if it would be possible to take a brief pause and have the VSBA board members complete the annual member survey. Because we use this to get feedback to better serve our membership, and it takes about 5 minutes to do the survey, and we really want to make sure that all the VSBA board members fill it out.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We had it in our to-do list there. So since we're running ahead of time, I'm wondering, Amy, do you mind dropping the link on the chat? And then if you haven't, I did it already, but if you haven't done it, please take 5 minutes. It just gives us important data, and it would be great also if you share your boards if you want to share with your board too. But go ahead, and there's the link right there. And you can even turn your cameras off and turn them on when you're done. And it's 6:24, and we'll be back here at 6:29. Okay. Thank you, Sue. We have one more minute, but take your time. At the same time, we are doing so well with time that. Okay, how's everybody doing?
I'm almost done. I talk a lot even in these things, so I'm trapped listening to myself type.
Some self-reflection there.
No, I'm judging. I'm
Okay.
judging you guys. I'm doing great. I'm judging you guys.
Oh. Okay. All right. I see the majority coming back up, and the next item is a pretty easy item. So if you're still filling it out, you can continue to fill it out. The next item on an agenda is our consent agenda. So I'm looking for a motion to accept the November minutes. Have a volunteer, Nancy, and then I saw Megan on mute too. So, okay, so Nancy moves it. Megan Messler has seconded. Any amendments, any notes that you guys had on those? Emily, you have your hand up.
Yes, I just had one item about the minutes. I wasn't included in the attendance for the meeting, and then my vote wasn't calculated as well.
Okay, Emily.
Does that make sense, Flor?
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't see that.
No problem.
Trying to go
Thank you.
back. All right. So are you okay with that friendly amendment, both Nancy and Megan? Okay, right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Really like a little chorus. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. The minutes had passed. Then since we have a lot of time, one of you guys had reached out to me, actually two of you, and you guys can talk about it, but about just doing a quick check-in on how everybody's feeling about their long-term weighted average daily membership. And if you have numbers or not numbers, we just wanted to do a quick check-in. We have our two volunteers already. I'm missing one of them that should be up there. Michael.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of problems. It seems they seem to have a particular problem with tuition students and an absolute complete inability to count private school tuition students. And we're spending a lot of time arguing with trying to get our students credited to us.
Thank you, Michael. Jim?
Yeah, probably somewhat for similar reasons. I mean, we've got 3 districts. They were all a total mess initially. After a lot of work, 2 of them started to get in the ballpark. The third, are by far our biggest district. It's just been a disaster. Just the data is way off. It's been very difficult to get it settled.
Thank you, Jim. Emily?
In Barrie, we lost about 220 long-term weighted average daily membership pupils, and part of that was due to people relocating after the flood. And another huge part is our early college students and our flexible pathway students. We see increasing numbers of those enrolling, and we're so excited for them, but they come out of our counts. And then we have the additional problem of trying to communicate what's happening with our taxpayers, because they don't understand the weighted averages to begin with, and they think that we've somehow lost 200 kids. So it's a really hard one. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Neil.
Yeah, I was the one of the people that reached out to Flora and asked that we include this. I mean, so I just was just curious to find out whether or not it was just us or if other people were seeing this as well, and it sounds like it's more widespread. One of the things that we heard, and I don't know if other people can confirm this based on their own experiences, that it has a it particularly affects those districts that use PowerSchool for collecting the student data, and challenges with PowerSchool interfacing with the state's system to report those numbers. That is what I am hearing. Um, one of the challenges that we've had for us is even so, I guess there was an updated spreadsheet that hit either just yesterday or today. Um, Several of our numbers are still showing as zero or just a line in the spreadsheet. Um, yeah, I mean, this is just this is terrible.
Thank you, Neil. Yeah, and thank you for flying it too. Clayton?
So ours is a little bit different. Again, we sit in the shadow of two large academies. And what we find is now that they're recruiting against us in some cases where students are willing to go but can't afford to pay, they're getting subsidized, or they're getting paid to move over via endowments, and then they're disappearing from our rolls despite the fact they live in our town. And so we're losing membership in that way. And this is a new thing that I've only really learned about when I was trying to figure out how many more students would come under the umbrella of our town if we were to close. And I've got all I know is that there's less than 11 at one of the schools because he couldn't report to me anything less than 11. But we're finding out that students are just vanishing from public education, and they're just being used to pump up private's numbers because they need numbers, and they're using endowment money to pay for it for a couple of the years, and then I think they might be pulling that endowment money away after a couple of years. But it like a new wrinkle in what's happening in this little corner.
That is heartbreaking. Sorry to hear, Clayton. Megan?
Yeah, I'm waiting for the COO to text me back. But I've not heard about huge issues overall. We're actually pretty close to what we think is final for our numbers from a weighted students perspective. The interesting thing for me is that while our actual student count is down, weighted average is actually going up due to demographic changes. So it's interesting to have fewer students but higher weighted students, and having to explain that there are few students, but their needs are higher than we would expected. So, but if I hear anything else in the next 3 minutes, I'll let you know.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Michael, you have one more comment?
Yeah, I mean, I'm worried that we have a repeat of last year pending. Last year, we got our final numbers after the warning deadline. And it's substantially different. So the average cost per student that we put on the ballot was wrong and off by quite a bit, by a couple $100. And the tax rate was wrong. And the percentage increase was wrong. All in a bad direction for us. And I'm really worried that's going to happen again this year. It has a big impact when they're really late on and incorrect. And it's, I don't get it.
Yeah, our numbers have been shifting to Washington Central. We were supposed to have our big meeting tonight, and between yesterday and today, we gained 3 students, but we are down 170 students. So similar to you, Emily, not students, but average daily, the long-term awaited. And it's, we're looking at $2.7 million in the hole, which is like super significant for, as you guys all know. So I feel for all of you, and I don't see any other hands. So is that enough information, Mr. Odell, that might be helpful? Thank you for
That was very helpful. I wonder if the chair might allow me another question.
Of course, we can make that as part as new business. So go ahead.
I am curious. So we've got VSBA issued a statement on based that came out from the report from the redistricting task force. I am curious if we have any observations based on Democratic leadership's response to the task force report.
So I'm gonna lean on Sue on this. We are holding strong behind our statement, and I think that's the best position. And I'll just be frank with you, and I'll let Sue. I didn't know your question before, otherwise I would have, me, prepping queen. I would have prepped for that answer, and
I am sorry for springing it on you, Floor, without
I know,
advance
but
notice.
I am feeling really good about our statement, and I think it allows us to be flexible when the legislature starts. And we had other things in mind. We really need to start now thinking more strategically what we're gonna do with that. But I think the statement still positions us really well, even if there's been the wide criticism from. I don't think the criticism is right directed to us. It's in general to the task force and to others, but I think I at least haven't heard pushback from our own members. I think for the most part, our members have been really happy with our statement, which I think that sets us in with better footing to start the session, that if we already have people really upset at us. I think our statement is flexible enough, if I may say that, that allows us to then lean on the things that we want to add, and strategically we can ask for changes as opposed to starting behind. I feel like I don't know. It's Sue, if you wanted to add, I don't, that's how I'm feeling with you bringing that question just right now, and hopefully that was coherent.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense, Floor, and just wanted to let everyone know that actually have a meeting tomorrow morning with our communications consultant and our lobbyist, and we're going to be bringing them together so that we're not doing things sort of siloed, and that we can really be effective in our communications. So I do think from what I've seen that yes, that's the messages that are coming from the leadership, but the members are not all like lined up right behind the leadership. So it's going to be a pretty contentious legislative session.
Thank you. Apologies, Floor.
No, no, it's totally fine. It's a good conversation. Sue and I did talk about, like, is there anything else, but we felt like the statement was strong enough as it is right now, and there's other things that we're talking about, potential op-eds, like we're always working. So
Yeah, we're also talking to the
oh,
other
Nancy.
associations as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nancy?
Maybe a change of subject, but before everyone leaves, I'm wondering if anyone else is sending are thinking about sending support letters to Winooski. Are we
Yeah,
as
that's a good.
VSBA thinking about doing anything in support of them or not? I'm just asking because I have been asked.
Yeah. We haven't. I had it in my to do with Sue on Monday, but I not gonna.
That's fine. I just didn't know.
To you, I want to say our district had sent a letter of support. A lot of superintendents have sent letters of support to Wilmer,
Mm-hmm.
as it is, and yeah, I think they can use all the support that we can that that we can send them. I also, and we're not, we are recording the meeting, but I also feel strongly that we also have to make sure that we are not putting our students in harm ways too. So we need to continue to support them, but not also make them targets. And we
Yes.
in our school districts, we have to be careful about how we approach these issues. And I know that we have talked about it, and the sentiment on the nation right now, and even in our own in our own state. I'm not saying don't do anything, but every time that you're putting something out or a statement out, think about, are you doing it for yourself or are you doing it for the students and the people that are affected, right? Is it making you feel good or is it making, and I'm saying this in the safety of this group, right?
Right.
Like, always consult with the people that are, the immigrants, the people that are under distress, because sometimes they actually do not want the attention and they want to, so, we do need to support Winooski, but I also, if you're starting any action in your districts, also be thoughtful about how you approach that, because the most important thing is always to serve our kids so that we have the systems in place. And we had this conversation through, sanctuary policy or not sanctuary policy, right? Like, so always, and that is just personal. I'm not saying, I'm taking the liberty of speak to you as your president, but that's how I feel also as an immigrant. You don't always you want to be supported and you want the education and you want all those things. And at the same time, you don't want to be a political tool for.
Right. And we're concerned then if we how the letter of support, or that's what we're calling it at the moment, is that going to be putting us in jeopardy or our students in jeopardy because we're giving them a letter of support? It's just.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of support, I think we need to support each other. We're all engaged in this conversation. I would be thoughtful about putting something out. So, consequences that their district has had is like they have had threats. They had to put their phones
Right.
up. I'm really close friends with Wilmer. Like he was testifying in DC just yesterday. And, I think there's things that we need to think through because I know we're recording this, but well, it's not going anywhere.
If I sent a draft, would you take a look at it, you or Sue? Would you have time to make sure that we're not
Like
saying
Sue,
the wrong
I learned this
things?
from Sue. Always check with counsel. I am not a lawyer.
Okay.
But I am happy to look at it if you want to have the heart that I'm good at that. I can look at, the intent and stuff like that, but I'm not a lawyer. So, and ultimately yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Because
And are you going to be able to stay after and tell me
Yes.
about the other?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Then Gaston, you had a question?
Yeah, Floor, can I ask a question? And this relates to, education transformation, actually goes back a number of years where, we're hearing all the time that Vermont is very high on its per pupil costs and we just sort of take it as fact. And it, you listen to different people and it's, I guess, very clear that the way states calculate that number is different from state to state, and you're not really comparing apples with apples. And that where Vermont is may, when you equalize everything and make everything in these, calculations the same, we may not end up being where we are currently. So I guess my question is this: is it possible to identify what other states put into their calculation of per pupil costs as a way of addressing that bullet point that is absolutely going to be a part of this education transformation bill, the law, going forward? I mean, it's just a talking point that you hear all the time, and it's hard to, get back at, well, yeah, they're high, but I don't know what we're being compared against. Does that make sense? And I don't know if through the NS, BA, if there is a mechanism to determine what that is, but I don't think anybody's ever actually calculated that or looked at that. And if that's the case, boy, it sure would be nice to read, how these are calculated across the country and to see an actual comparison that is equalized so that we're all comparing the same thing. Does that make sense? Over?
Yeah, that makes sense, Gaston. And I know I will let Sue lean into this too, because I know there in the past there has been different presentations that they have done, and some states do it a little bit different and not include what we call here our cost drivers. So different, but I don't have all that knowledge. It's a really good question that you ask, Gaston, but I don't have the data with me right now. But we can look a little bit more into it and get back to you at our next meeting, or get back to you as we talked about. I don't have it,
Yeah.
I can't
I'm not
really,
aware of
but
any report on
I
that
don't, yeah.
exists. We can certainly look and see if one is, but if one doesn't exist, I think it's like a PhD thesis, or you need a statistician, or it's a
Yeah.
big question.
Yeah, I remember some comparisons that, and I don't know if it was Rebecca or Jess that did this with Massachusetts and a couple of New England states, but I don't, I'm looking at Neil. I remember seeing something from, I think it was Rebecca. I can't remember, but we'll find it. But it's not comprehensive. It's not, doesn't take care of all that you're saying. Mel has been patiently waiting with her hand up, and then Barbara.
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly back that up and say I absolutely think there's something to look at there, but I know that it's, like you said, a PhD level thesis, because we talk about 80% of our cost comes from educators, but if you look in other states, educators are getting paid way more right off the top than we are in Vermont. So it how it is that, what is it that's in our budget? And you alluded to this earlier. What are the these 10 other items, right? What are the other items that are in the education fund or be taken from the education fund that are then be assigned to our students and making that cost go up? So I can't do the work, but I totally appreciate that question. I think it should also be brought to the legislators when they start trying to push that around as the reason to be changing this. Maybe we need to be looking at what really is going on.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Barbara, go ahead. I was like, Barbara, are you
Yeah, speaking to
frozen?
that
Sorry, it
same
was me.
point, I might suggest that rather than have to have a comprehensive analysis of every state, I think have a communications plan about debunking that myth, which would mean getting some very salient examples from some states, for example, that don't include special ed costs in their costs per student, or don't include transportation costs in their costs per student, or something like that, so that we could just make a case without having to have a 50-state analysis with, a PhD student working for several years. I think we want to make the point because the people who are making the point now don't have all the data either.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. And I see Emily's hand up, and I just want to say, and I think she might want to say the same thing, but I think we need to start rethinking about how we talk about special education, and special education is part of, if we truly believe that all kids can learn, special education is part of core education. And we need to start like reframing a little bit of that in
No, but
my
that isn't what that was
opinion.
not my point
Yeah.
at all, Flor. My point was not
I
how we
I
talk
know.
about special ed. My point was how we talk about how we say what we spend for our students, and how other states are, and how there is this thing going around, this meme or whatever you want to call it, that Vermont's the most expensive state in cost per student, and it's a phony thing to be basing comparison on. Or it's not as legit.
Yeah, I get it, Barbara. All I was saying is that we're trying to move away from saying that special ed is a cost driver. I understand. Emily?
Thank you, Flor. And I did see that, and I've noticed that. I really appreciate that. That special ed report's going to come out, hopefully. In the bigger picture, though, like what we're really talking about is misinformation, right? And how do we counter misinformation? And what does it mean when people are using misinformation to against us, right? I think about this a lot in my community because we have people who are actively creating misinformation and rumors, and it drives a lot of decision making from our voters. I don't know what the answer is to how to counter it. I thought it was to provide the correct information to people, and I spent a lot of time trying to explain things, and there's just a narrative there, an emotional narrative that people won't let go of with misinformation. So I wonder about that too, Gaston. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. That was great conversation. I want to take advantage that we were early. I myself still need to drive home, and I'm actually the only car in the parking lot at U32. It's so. I think we're if it's okay with you guys, we should adjourn, and I want to wish everybody a joyful holiday, no matter what you celebrate. And I hope that you have time to spend with family and recharge and all of those special people that, hold you dear and let you do what you love for kids and are cooking dinner for you right now, or are supporting you while you do all this board work. And again, thank you for all you guys do. It's great to be with you guys tonight.
Do you need a
And
motion to adjourn?
yes, please.
I'll do it.
Mel. Mel. And Jim. Okay, the South is showing up. All right, everybody. Nice to see everybody. And by consensus, raise your hand if you are. All right, everybody. Okay, goodbye.
Drive safe,
Have
drive safe,
have a
Laura.
good night.
Drive
Thank
Bye.
you.
safe.
Bye.